Good evening to all of you. Is my mic working and you can hear me? Great. Okay. I want to add my welcome to you all for being here at this forum of the Roberts District Supervisor candidates. And I want to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this event. I know the League has done this for a number of years, and they do some of the best forums, giving opportunity to candidates to really let people know what they stand for and who they are. So I'm delighted to be here this evening. It's my real pleasure to introduce the candidates. Both have very long and impressive resumes, which I have compressed to let you know just a little bit about their service to our community. First, Jack Fraley. He's currently chairman of the James City County Planning Commission. He served 8 years as a commissioner and 3 terms as chair of the commission. Additionally, he serves on the James River Commerce Center Architectural Review Board, and his prior service includes 10 years on the Board of Zoning Appeals, 3 of those as chair. Mr. Fraley's career includes a long association with Shell Oil, which in 1984 enabled him to launch a new business in James City County, Rampart Packaging. He retired from Rampart in 1998. And John McLennan, who is a member of the James City County Board of Supervisors and chairman of the Government Department at the College of William and Mary. Mr. McLennan was elected to the Board of Supervisors in 1997 to represent the Jamestown District, and he is now serving his 4th term. But due to redistricting, he's now in the Roberts District. Mr. McLennan, among his service, has served as president of the Williamsburg Area Transit Authority, as vice president of the Virginia Transit Authority, and as chairman of the Coalition of High Growth Communities. He's lived in this community since 1974. So those are your candidates. Before the session began, there was a coin toss to determine who would answer the question first. I will direct questions to them, and they both will have the opportunity to answer all questions. The coin toss was won by Mr. Fraley, and so he will answer the first question, and when it comes to the 2-minute closing remarks, Mr. McLennan, will have the first opportunity to make the first 2-minute closing remarks. So, question 1 for you gentlemen. Please tell us why you wish to serve on the Board of Supervisors, what you hope to accomplish, and what experience and skills you would contribute to the board. So, Mr. Fraley?
If elected to can you hear me? Yeah. If elected to the board, I will bring new energy, new ideas, and a new dynamic. I am a problem solver. I proved that in my 8 years on the Planning Commission. I am from the private sector. I think that we need to work hard to create some good quality jobs in James City County. I created over 100 of those in the business that I started. And I think that I've also got a good track record on quality of life issues as a planning commissioner, having advocated and put forth a number of quality of life issues that were accepted. And I think that the quality of life and a vibrant business sector in James City County are interdependent on one another, and I think I can put a lot of help on that.
Thank you. Mr. McLennan?
Thank you very much, first of all, to the League for organizing the forum. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and to discuss some of the issues. A minute's not very long, so let me quickly get to the question of why I seek to serve on the board for another 4-year term representing the Roberts District. I think it's extremely important that the board have representatives who are able to listen to the people and to understand their concern about the rampant growth that the community has experienced. We've grown at 4 times the national average for 2 decades in a row, and people have told us that we are in danger of losing the unique character of the Williamsburg area. We know that that's the primary factor that keeps us economically vital and healthy, that makes it the kind of place that we want to live in. And so I think that it's extremely important for the board to represent those attitudes and to be prepared to work energetically on behalf of a better managed and controlled rate of growth in the community. And I think it's important for neighborhoods to have an advocate. And that's what I've done in the Jamestown district, and that's what I will do in the Roberts district.
Thank you, Mr. McGlennon. You will take the second question first, and that question is, the Historic Triangle Collaborative recently issued a report which discussed a common implied long-term vision for the community. Please tell us what your long-term vision is for James City County and what you see as its role in the Historic Triangle.
Well, I think that James City County, York, and Williamsburg do have a good opportunity to work together to try to achieve some common objectives. But I think it would be naive to assume that we don't have some differences as well, and some ways in which our communities are pulled apart. And so I think the real challenge is going to be for us to sit down and figure out where are the areas that we can agree on. And I hope that one of those areas is that it's extremely important for us to recognize that people want to maintain the small town atmosphere. The nature of this community is one that can very easily be turned into any place USA. And instead, we need to focus on the things that keep James City County, Williamsburg, and York County unique, and the Historic Triangle, a place that people want to come to visit, people want to live in, and people enjoy for the historic, for the environmental, and for the aesthetic beauty.
Thank you, Mr. McGlennon. Mr. Fraley?
James City County is a special place for residents and visitors alike. We've got beautiful vistas, we've got great waterways, and we've got an active and interested community. I think it makes sense, as John has said, to work regionally in a collaborative way wherever possible, but we also have our own unique circumstances here in James City County. And I think what we need to do is bring some ideas forward on how we want to maintain the quality of life that we have here and preserve our rural lands, which is very important to the community, because our current policies are flawed. And it's just not going to be enough to identify a problem and say we've got a problem. We need someone who can actually bring solutions and ideas to correct those problems, and that would be me.
Thank you, Mr. Fraley. A couple questions on land use and economic development. You both have a history of voting the opposite way on several land use cases or zoning changes that would be considered controversial considering the public opposition. For example, the car wash at Williamsburg Crossing, the Courthouse Commons where Fresh Market now operates, and the new Economic Opportunity Zone. Mr. Fraley, you voted yes. Mr. McGlennon, no. Can you both explain how you consider land use cases and how public opinion plays into your voting decisions? Mr. Fraley.
Yeah, certainly. First of all, as a planning commissioner, our boundaries are supposed to be voting just strictly on a land use basis. Now, I've been known to expand as a planning commissioner beyond that role, and you know what? I've been sued by not only developers for opposing development, by the county. The county even sued me, or the committee that I led, in opposing that development. So planning commissioners are supposed to make their decisions strictly on land use. Supervisors as elected officials have greater latitude. We're appointed as planning commissioners, and we're not elected to insulate us from public pressure and political pressure, because that's not our role.
Mr. McGlennon.
Thank you. My objective in addressing land use issues will vary depending on the nature of the land involved and the location in the community. When we're talking about a new use in land that's adjoining existing established neighborhoods or existing land uses, and I think it's extremely important to pay attention to the public opinion on that issue, in particular the effects that will have on the neighboring properties. I think it's critical that we understand the impact that the kind of new development being proposed would perhaps change the nature of the community in which people are already living, perhaps affect negatively their property values, or maybe enhance it. But without taking into consideration those positions, I think it's very difficult for the board to make a good decision. That's why I was concerned recently when the board voted to make more uses by right, to take away the opportunity for public hearings, and why I voted against those changes in the ordinance which Mr. Fraley supported.
Thank you, Mr. McGlennon.
I guess I need to ask for rebuttal since you mentioned me. Which is my name?
You have 30 seconds.
Mr. McGlinnan did oppose all 6 ordinances. They were recommended by staff. All but one was unanimously recommended by the Planning Commission. These are the business and commercial ordinances we're talking about. Here's what he's talking about. John's not particularly friendly to business. We all know that. And in this case, we were putting the ordinances through that were a result of recommendations from the Business Climate Task Force report, which he supported.
Well,
since you mentioned Mr. McGlennan's name, we have another 30 seconds. Yes.
Well, Jack, I think it is important, first of all, to clarify that while you may feel that I'm anti-business, I feel that I have high standards that this community expects to be enforced when development proposals come along. But I've worked carefully with a lot of businesses to help strengthen their position in this community, to make their opportunities better. That's why I was recognized by the Hampton Roads Technology Council as one of the leaders of the year in promoting technology, and strongly supported the business incubator. But in terms of those ordinances, we're going to be reconsidering a couple of those ordinances on Tuesday nights because we didn't carefully enough consider their impact.
Thank you. The next question really allows you to expand on this subject a little more. The recent adoption of the Economic Opportunity Zone again showed the two of you on opposite sides of the fence, with Mr. Fraley voting yes and Mr. McGlennan voting no. Can both of you explain your philosophy on business growth and retention in James City County? And Mr. McGlennan, I believe it's to you.
Yeah, I think that one of the most important findings of the Business Climate Task Force a few years ago that Mr. Fraley just mentioned was the fact that most businesses reported that the reason that they would consider coming here, or that they came here, or that they stay here is because of the quality of life of the community. That means, obviously, that one of the most important objectives of the Board of Supervisors should be to make sure that we retain that quality of life, and to help existing businesses especially to strengthen their own position, to help them grow and expand, to help them provide more opportunities for the people who are here, but not necessarily just to accept any kind of growth that might be proposed that would have the impact of promoting much more aggressive growth, development of the county. I think that when we see the Economic Opportunity Zone, one of the things that we have seen promoted there is the idea of multi-story buildings to attract a corporate headquarters that would have to bring in hundreds or thousands of new people who don't currently live in the area in order to provide jobs that we really don't quite know where they are at the moment.
Mr. Farley?
Let me address 3 urban myths on the Economic Opportunity Zone, perpetuated by Mr. McGlennan and some of his allies. First of all, Mr. McGlennan has been talking about 8-story apartments and office towers. That can't happen because there's a height limit of 60 feet in the Economic Opportunity Zone. The only market I would know for 8-story apartments at 60 feet would be maybe for Gnomes. The second urban myth is that this land will be preserved, taken off the books for being preserved for agricultural purposes. It's not going to be preserved for agricultural purposes because of the policy that Mr. McGlennan supports for rural lands. It will be built out at 1 unit per 3 acres into suburban sprawl.
Rebuttal?
I think I'd like the opportunity to rebut that. First of all, that's not the policy I support. I've supported making some action on rural lands, which has been a low priority of the current majority of the board and apparently the Planning Commission, which has not moved forward a rural land study that would have changed the development practices in agricultural land. Secondly, in terms of those office buildings, I didn't invent the idea. We were told at a meeting that Mr. Fraley attended, I believe, where that the only kind of construction that would allow for the attraction of some of the kinds of businesses that were being considered as part of the EO zone were multi-story buildings of 8 stories.
I need some time.
I didn't hear your name mentioned.
Oh, yes, he did.
But I'll
I
let you.
attended a meeting.
Go ahead.
Yes, he did.
Yes.
I attended a meeting. That doesn't mean I said anything. But so what's up with that? Look, I actually served on a Rural Lands Committee as one of the committee members and put forth some recommendations. So I don't know what Mr. McGlennon's even referring to, and that was presented to the board, and there it went. I have been an advocate for rural lands, protecting and preserving rural lands, and what we need to do is adopt conservation zoning in rural lands, cluster down, do an cumulative inventory of the lands we want to protect, get them in the GIS mapping system, and then take all those millions of dollars in our PDR fund and our green space fund and start buying that property up so I have something for rural lands.
All right, let's move on. And Mr. Fraley, I think this question goes to you first. What do you think that James City County, York County, and the City of Williamsburg can do together to improve the economic diversity of this region and this destination? And what specific collaborative efforts should be considered?
Well, you know, one of the efforts and consideration of choosing the acreage that was chosen for the Economic Opportunity Zone, which, by the way, was recommended in the Business Climate Task Force report to preserve some large acreage out in that area, is it directly adjoins York County's Economic Opportunity Zone. So that was one of the factors that went into choosing that property, in order that we could work together with York County in a collaborative way to plan that in the best interests of both of us.
When you're working collaboratively, I think it is important for everybody to operate for the benefit of each other. What we know about the York County Economic Opportunity Zone ordinance is that it prohibits residential development, which ours does not. Like a number of other instances, York has been very interested in developing commercially and retail establishments to take advantage of the James City County population. And I think if we are going to work collaboratively, one of the first things we have to do is recognize that we all have to share not only the benefits, but the burdens of the development that might occur. And that means being willing to accept residences as a fair share of the residences and the services that go along with them if there is going to be residential development associated with an economic opportunity zone.
Thank you. Mr. McGlennon, to you first. How do you think the funds that were withdrawn by James City County from the Greater Williamsburg Chamber and Tourism Alliance should best be used?
Well, I think that the first and most important thing is to identify certain kinds of activities or events that will, in fact, produce a return on the investment. In particular, I think that marketing is the area in which we are most likely to need some additional help right now. I would be quite happy to consider using some of that funding for special events. But then the question is, how do people find out about the special events? How do they know that they're occurring? And so at the moment, given the desperate need for additional advertising dollars, I think that they could probably better be spent in that regard.
Mr. Farley?
You know what? We have a struggling tourist industry. We need to do a triage for our industry. We have 13 properties, hotel properties, in James City County. 12 of them are in dire straits. We need to engage, like I am as a businessman, engage with our local business people. We need to understand what their needs are, and we need to support them and get serious about the bread and butter in our economy, which is our tourism industry and our hotel industry. And that's how I would think about using some of those funds.
Thank you. A question on schools, and I hope I didn't lose my place here, but Mr. Fraley, I think the question goes to you first. The current Roberts District Supervisor recently suggested changing the formula for funding the Joint School Division. With contract renewal negotiations recently getting underway, what guidance would you give the James City County negotiators?
Well, I think that was a good idea and a good proposal made by Mr. Goodson, and I think it's worthy of consideration. But what I'd like to say about the schools is I recently met with Dr. Constantino, had a good one-hour meeting with him, and I think he's got some great ideas about how to improve the schools in James City County. We hit it off. We talked about quality systems and quality issues that had implemented in my business and how we might apply that to the schools. I think I really like the fact that he's an advocate for parental involvement and For me, what makes great schools are great teachers and a great leader.
Mr. McGlennon?
Well, I think the most important thing, and we've had some discussions about this, needless to say, as we prepare for the contract to be readopted, is that we have to find a method of allocating both the costs and the facilities of the school system fairly and equitably. We've been very fortunate that for more than 50 years now, Williamsburg and James City County have been able to come to accommodation, to agree on fair and equitable formulas for funding our schools. And I'm very confident that we're going to do that again this time around. Those numbers may have to change a little bit simply because of the fact that the school ratios are changing once again. And we always encounter some differences in terms of the kinds of financial obligations and factors that the community has. But I think by and large these will produce, again, a kind of agreement among grown-ups, the City Council and the Board of Supervisors, to achieve a fair and equitable contract.
Thank you. A couple of questions directly to issues in the Roberts District. In a recent news account, a citizen was quoted as saying that the Grove area of the Roberts District has not received the attention it deserves from the county government. Do you agree with the statement? Why or why not? And what would you do as the Roberts District Supervisor to address the issue or change this perception? Mr. McGlennon?
Well, I do. I think that in a lot of ways the Grove area is a community that certainly needs the attention of the county government in a much more substantial way. Not every part of this community has exactly the same needs and desires, and I think in particular there are some areas where we can improve public transportation, parks and recreation facilities, and improve the enforcement of the zoning ordinances and the codes to make sure that properties are properly maintained and keep their values. I think also that there are increasingly concerns about public safety and that we need to address those concerns as well.
Thank you. Mr. Fraley?
Here's what needs to happen in Grove. We need to engage the local community and local business leaders in planning Grove. We need to lay out the community, working with them, engaging with them in a way that we can build a consensus within that community for what they want to be and how they want to look. I'm a big believer in planning in that way. As Mr. McGlennon said, and I agree with that, all areas aren't the same. So we need to plan that area, and we need to get the community involved in planning that so we can carry out the wishes of the community, and that's what we need to be doing in Grove.
Thank you. This question goes first to Mr. McGlennon. When Colonial Williamsburg... Nope, I'm sorry, Mr. Fraley. I'm sorry. I'm getting lost here. When Colonial Williamsburg sold Carter's Grove, it retained ownership of part of the country road in the city and in James City County. They have been open to turning it over to the city and the county for a linear park, and the city, in its goals and initiatives, has enthusiastically endorsed the idea. The county has yet to commit. What do you think the county should do?
I would vote yes. Just like the city.
And why?
Well, I think it's a good idea, and I think that hopefully, again, we could work collaborative with the city in order to make the best plan and provide the best use for that area.
Thank you. Mr. McGlennon?
No question that the road is a great asset and that we ought to do everything that we can to make sure that it remains available to the community and become more accessible. And I think in a lot of ways, when we consider the amount of resources that have come to Roberts District overall, in Parks and Recreation, that's an area where I think this district has been underserved. And that this might provide a really great recreational opportunity for folks and draw together parts of that district that may not necessarily feel themselves part of the same community yet. But one of my goals would be to help unite the folks in the district and people in the city.
Great. Okay, thank you. On to a sort of a more philosophical question. And Mr. McGlennon, it's for you first. On the national front, government is experiencing intense criticism about its role in the everyday lives of citizens. And locally, the James City County Board of Supervisors really recently heard some residents voicing their opposition to Agenda 21 of the ICLEI and the United Nations as a potential intrusion on property rights and freedom. In your opinion, I'm not asking about that issue, but just setting the stage, in your opinion, what is the role of government?
Well, I think the role of government, first of all, is to meet the basic needs of the community, to do those things that the citizens can't do for themselves, but obviously need to do in order to achieve a functioning, safe, and just society. And that means providing public safety, educating children, making sure that the impact of property use by one citizen is not inconsistent with the ability of their neighbor to utilize their land effectively, and to provide for the kinds of amenities that citizens in a community decide that they want to see achieved as part of what they view as a good quality of life. Communities are going to vary in where they draw the lines. I think our community tends to have high standards and wants to have excellent libraries and great park and recreation systems. And so I think that the answer to your question basically is that it starts at some basic fundamental needs that have to be provided and then goes to the public's wishes and will to go beyond that.
Thank you. Mr. Fraley?
Well, I know Mr. McGlennon might have been a little uncomfortable with the IGLEI, and since he was a blueprint endorser of IGLEI. But as far as government and what we should be providing, I think a variety of housing types and cost, public safety, certainly, great schools, certainly, ample park and recreation facilities that are available to everyone, libraries within near distance, and I think we need to talk about moving on toward thinking about walkable communities where we've got where they're interconnected, walkable, bicycle paths, and I think that that's what our citizens expect. They have high standards, and I think it's incumbent on your elected officials to work to provide that for you.
Since
Yes.
the question originally posed said not really to talk about the question of the membership in ICLEI, let me just say that I'm surprised that Mr. Fraley would raise that particular issue and concern because the folks who came and asked us to leave an organization of local governments devoted to the idea of trying to figure out how to address climate change and an organization that helped us save $25,000 in consultant costs. The people who came there and asked us to deal with those issues were people who also said we should not have zoning, and that comprehensive plans and sustainability were part of international socialist plots. Mr. Fraley, is that your opinion of what comprehensive plans do, especially plans that have sustainability in their titles?
Well, sustainability in our plan is not the sustainability that you may be referring to. In fact, we took out purposely a lot of the sustainability issues and goals that came out of that Agenda 21 and the United Nations agenda, which had to do with redistribution of assets, redistribution of wealth, and that. But to me, it was all a sideshow. And I just said I understood how you might have been uncomfortable.
I wasn't uncomfortable at all, Mr. Fraley.
Well, since that wasn't the intent of my question, we'll move on. The last question from me before we go to ones from the audience is, Mr. Fraley, name a trait that you think is an important characteristic for a local leader and describe how your leadership style exemplifies this trait.
I think open-mindedness is important. I think inclusiveness is important. I think optimism is important. I think good humor is important. I think having ideas is important. And I think being dynamic is important. And I think having a high energy level is important. And listening is important. Now, I think I have great skills in all those. I may need to work on that last one.
Mr. McGlennon.
Well, I think that it begins with listening, because you need to hear what people are concerned about and how to address those issues. It also includes integrity and an expectation that people have that you're looking at issues seriously, considering the implications of those issues in terms of what impact they will have on the community as a whole, and that you're making decisions not based on who's bringing a proposal forward, what they may have to be able to bring economically to a particular situation, but whether it's the right thing for the community at large. People want to feel that their elected representatives are representing their interests and not any kind of special interests. All too infrequently, that is the case.
Thank you. The first question that has been sent to me is, in a period of lower and continuing reduced revenues through this decade, what are your spending priorities? Are there areas that you'll seek to resize, eliminate, or consolidate? And that goes to...
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I think you answered the last
Yes, I think
question
that's
first. Right,
correct.
right. Yes. Well, first of all, let me say that I think that we are going to face a difficult year or two now, but that hopefully, as part of the regular economic cycle, we will see some improvement. Local governments tend to lag behind the national and state governments in the improvement of their conditions, but even here in James City County, we're expecting to hear that there is some improvement in our situation, that we've actually produced a surplus over our planned spending for this coming year. This past year, rather. So that's not to minimize the problem that we will face, because there are a lot of bills that are coming past due. The state has sometimes told us things like, don't bother paying some of your pension costs this year because we can't afford to do ours, so we'll let you off the hook as well. I think I've answered the question about priorities in terms of public safety and education as being critically important. And then we have to have a conversation in the community about what people are willing to pay for and what services they want to see provided.
The Republican majority correctly anticipated the looming economic downfall and deliberations in the 2009 budget, and went on to start, during those deliberations, budget cutting that was needed. Mr. McGlennon vociferously objected to that budget cutting, saying that he couldn't support that and that tax rates would need to go up. In the 3 years since that, we've built 2 schools, police headquarters, kept essential services provided to our citizens, and achieved a AAA bond rating. And it looks like when the accounting for all the books closed this year, we're going to have a several $million surplus in our budget, and the tax rate stayed flat the entire time.
Since there was a suggestion that I had proposed raising the tax rate in 2009, I would like an opportunity to simply respond to that. I'm not aware of that, Mr. Fraley. Perhaps you can tell me when that occurred and what tax rate I was proposing.
What you said is you did not support what you said at the meeting was you did not support the budget cuts, you did not vote for the budget, and you said, quote, unquote, the tax rate will have to go up. You did not propose the tax rate, you said it's going to have to go up. And I invite anybody to play back the meeting, and you'll hear his comments.
Uh-huh.
So you didn't propose it then, you said it's going to have to go up.
Mm-hmm. I think that the discussion that we had at that time related to the fact that there was no opportunity to discuss the budget proposal, and that there should have been a more fully inclusive discussion of that particular important policy document before we moved on. I would invite people to go take a look at that meeting and see if you find the same information that Mr. Fraley has suggested here.
Gentlemen, we have a lot of questions from the audience, so we'd like to just move on. Let's see. There's a number of them on growth, so I'm going to pick one. How do you propose to slow growth on pre-existing approvals? Be specific with real approaches, not just PDR and purchase of green space, since they have limitations. And I think that is Fraley.
Ideas. What we need to do is to pose the policy question and answer it. The question that needs to be posed is, how big can this community grow, and still provide the quality of life to our citizens, preserve our environment, and moving on from that question, which can be done with our current resources and answers to that, we should also look at population levels in the comprehensive plan compared to the zoning. The zoning at build-out will produce a population level of about 118,000, where the comprehensive plan has much higher population levels, maybe as high as 180,000. And I have proposed that we need to look at the zoning and the comprehensive plan and harmonize the comprehensive plan more toward the zoning in order to make sure that we don't get overpopulated in James City County. So those are ideas.
Well, I think one of the first things you do is when you adopt your comprehensive plan, you look for ways to actually potentially stop increasing the growth rate that could occur in the county. The comprehensive plan, which I voted against, as Mr. Fraley has pointed out, would allow the population of the county grow to about 180,000 or more. That's roughly 3 times its current population. And I think most people in James City County would be astounded at the idea of a community of that size. So what can we do? Well, it's awfully hard to change some of the decisions that have already been made. But there may be some ways to offer people who have approvals on some parcels of property the opportunity to come back in and see if there might be better ways in which they could develop those lands that might help us to address the current needs and recognize the current nature of the market that really isn't going to support the level of development that they might have wanted in the foreseeable future.
All right. A question on water. Over 3 years ago, the James City County and the Services Authority signed and financed a $25 million water contract with Newport News. And then there's a long statement about water systems being incompatible and other information that I'm sure you are familiar with. So the question is, was this a wise investment? And do you have any concerns with that arrangement and whether the equity of whether Newport News Water Works selling the same water we contracted for to the brewery?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's yours. I start this one.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
All right. And let me just say that I think that given the information that we had available at the time and given the expectation of the construction of the King William Reservoir, that it was probably about the best decision that could be made. In hindsight, we see that the reservoir is not occurring, that the cost that we paid was conditioned on the idea that would be helping to build additional capacity, which is not going to be needed in the near future. And therefore, we really ought to be reevaluating the second part of this deal. And I would say that the best thing that we did in adopting that proposal a couple of years ago was to split the payments in 2 parts and to have one set of negotiations a couple of years ago and another scheduled for several years from now. I think that issue needs to be on the table, and if we do need additional water from Newport News, we should pay for it at a more reasonable rate that takes into account the fact they haven't had to build new facilities in order to provide that water.
Well, I won't criticize John or the board for the decision they made. I think that they were, at the time that they made it, essentially buying insurance and a wait-and-see attitude. But it's clear to me that the cooperation, the regional cooperation, although, again, being a good idea, is not working to our benefit because the forecasts are widely out of control. The situation has changed big time. We've got more energy-efficient utilities that we're using. We've got odd and even watering. People are taking much more to heart the idea of that. So we need to start today renegotiating that deal. Today. I'd be on the phone tomorrow because it does not look like a good deal to me at this point.
There are several questions on campaign finances that probably are just yes or no's. And so, Mr. Fraley starts with you. Have you set any boundaries on campaign finances that you will accept? Will all publicly will all your donations be publicly recorded several days in advance of the election? And have you accepted donations from developers?
All my donations are publicly disclosed. I have rejected some donations, or let me say this, discouraged them before they ever got to me. And I'm not going to accept a cash donation from the Republican committee because you can't really tell where that money comes from. I'm proud of my donors. They're publicly disclosed and available for everybody to see.
Yeah, I think we both follow the requirements of the law, which is to say that donations of over $100 are publicly disclosed. I do not accept contributions from developers. I also am pleased to say that I have over 240 contributors to my campaign at this point, and that the average contribution is probably somewhere in the range of $70. I think that reflects a grassroots campaign that has strong support in the communities. Overwhelmingly, the people who have contributed are residents of James City County, and I'm very pleased with that fact. And they are not people who have any business before the board.
So much for me thinking those were yes or no answers. A question on the potential coal-fired power plant that's proposed for across the James River. Why have our local representatives refused to take a position on this? And how will you change this? And it is you first,
yes.
Mr. McLean.
And I've asked for our board to consider to discuss this issue. Ultimately, I think that at this point we are waiting to see what the regional response is going to be, because it may preempt any need for our locality to act. There is a great likelihood that the Hampton Roads region will view this plant as undesirable, both from a health perspective and from an economic perspective, because of the burdens that it would place on existing industries to reduce their operations, to reduce the amount of emissions that they produce, and that may be enough to make this coal plant a no-go from the beginning.
I think John's answer is reasonable and acceptable and a good one. I've got nothing to add.
Great. Okay, the next question goes first to you, Mr. Fraley. So much of our attention goes to new development. What can we expect to be done in the county if you are elected to address the needs of the older portions of the community?
Well, you know, we have a lot of empty storefronts around town. And we certainly don't need to be recruiting any more retail kind of businesses in until we think better and have some new ideas on how to fill up the empty storefronts. There may be a special case of that we want to bring, but we need to think about how we can adaptive reuse those empty storefronts. And we can think of ways, themes to do that. For certain areas that might be thematic, and then promote those, maybe incentivize people to come in those areas. We can think about all other kinds of uses that aren't permitted in some of those areas that might still fit within the surrounding community, and allow those uses to be used, and incentivize retailers to go in and actually go in those storefronts. And so adaptive reuse is something that we really need to think about.
I've suggested that one of the things we need to do in the commercial sector, in the retail area in particular, is to try to find some opportunities to help develop some hub shopping locations, more oriented around particular neighborhoods, to move some of the traffic and congestion away from the Monticello corridor. I think that it would be more desirable to help an area like Jamestown Road and 199 develop a reputation as a center for gifts and artworks and other small home decor shops that would provide a reason for people to go to that destination for shopping. That the Toano area might have more rural-based business enterprises that would again, give tourists a reason to stay in town for an extra day and visit a couple of those scattered shopping opportunities throughout the area and fill some of those empty storefronts. But it's not just the retail part, it's the neighborhoods that I'm concerned about as well. We have a lot of neighborhoods with potentially outstanding affordable housing that is in danger of deteriorating to the point where people will not want to live there and where we can't save those neighborhoods. We really need to focus attention on those neighborhoods.
Thank you. We have time for just a couple more questions before the close. So, Mr. McGlennon, what are your plans to develop high-paying jobs in James City County, and how do you propose to do it?
Well, I've already suggested that one of the things that we can do is support the business incubator that has been quite successful in the county. We have a new economic development team who are very skilled and who I think, given the right opportunities, will help to develop those jobs. My first priority here really is to help improve the condition for people who are already in the area and are perhaps underemployed or would like to move up out of the service sector. Part of the problem we have is that the Chamber tells us we have a huge demand for future service jobs, and so trying to solve that problem creates a real conundrum for us. At the same time, I've also talked with the EDA about how we could create in the county a kind of growth industry. We are a climate showcase community in James City County, trying to promote energy retrofits of existing houses. And we have an EPA grant to allow us to do that. And that grant will allow us to train people in the construction trades to shift to energy retrofits, to rehabilitating housing that we can apply all over Hampton Roads.
I pushed as a planning commissioner, made a presentation along with my co-commissioner, Reese Peck, to the EDA to expand and redraw and reform our enterprise zones, which we did. That was one key thing that we needed to do. I also pushed the EDA in meetings with them to get involved in the retail sector, which they had not been involved before, and also to get involved in pushing them into tourism, which they're now pushing into. I'm surprised John talked about the EDA because in his 14 years on the board, I don't think he's ever served as the board liaison with the EDA. But from my standpoint, I know what jobs are. I create over 100 of them, good-paying jobs that actually companies we need to recruit like mine that make something, that ship it across the United States and can afford to pay $15 and $20 an hour in the factory like I did at my company. Those are the companies we need to recruit here, and I'll be involved in doing that.
So Mr. Fraley is absolutely right. I haven't served as the EDA liaison. However, I have met with the EDA directors any number of times and with the EDA administrator for the county because I have had ideas about what we should be trying to do. And unfortunately, sometimes the EDA gets too focused on development as the only way to have economic development and not enough on growing existing businesses. I would say that today when I met with the Hotel Motel Association, I was talking about what we can do to strengthen businesses. And I've served for a number of years on the executive committee of the Chamber of Commerce, where we have obviously focused on economic development quite significantly.
Thank you. I think two more questions, and then we'll go to the closing comments. Mr. Fraley, I believe this goes to you first. What do you view as the most serious impacts of the recession on James City County and its citizens? What's the county doing to address these impacts, and are there other things that should be done?
Probably everybody out there knows someone who's looking for a job. Probably everyone out there knows someone who's underemployed, but has to take a job that they're overqualified for just to feed their family. There's probably someone out there that knows someone who has to work 2 jobs, or maybe even 3 jobs to keep their family unit together. There's probably someone that you know that has to commute to Newport News or Richmond or Norfolk because they can't find a good quality job in James City County. You probably even know someone who's just given up, despondent, facing potential dire consequences of maybe losing their house, family breaking up, or losing their car. We need to bring good companies to James City County and work hard at that to create the kind of jobs that I brought in my business.
Three quick things. I think it's clear that there are more and more people who are in need of basic services, basic food, health, basic housing, medical care, and the like. And I've tried to work on those issues, serving on the Old Town Medical Board, trying to work with the Housing Department to make sure that we can refit low-income housing that's in foreclosure and make it habitable again and get families back in there. And in a larger sense, this community has been significantly affected by the downturn in the housing market. And we now have lots of empty houses sitting around that are preventing people from realizing the value of what they thought was their most solid asset, that they had spent a lot of time building their futures around. And until we can see the restoration of the value of that existing housing, we really are going to be in a difficult situation to accommodate anything new that would further deteriorate the values of those homes.
Thank you. Okay, the final question from the audience, and it goes first to Mr. McGlennon. What will you do to lessen the partisanship on the Board of Supervisors?
Well, I think the first thing you try to do is to speak respectfully and to engage in a discussion that allows a full exploration of the issues. It's not just a matter of name-calling or voting a particular way. I think the real most important first step we could take is to have serious discussion about significant public policy issues and to remind people that that's what we should be doing sitting up there on the board. I think if people have watched my record over the last several years on the board, they've seen that I'm willing to ask difficult questions and to push to get a real answer to the idea of, is this the right thing for our community to be doing? Are these the right policies for us to adopt? Who will be affected by it and how will they be affected? And I think just having that elevated discussion helps an awful lot.
Mr. Farley.
Well, I think I've demonstrated in my 8 years on the Planning Commission that I know how to work across ideological boundaries to accomplish things in the best interests of the citizens. Some of my biggest supporters on the Planning Commission have been people completely on the other side of the ideological spectrum from me. If anyone watches the Planning Commissions that I'm chair of, you'll see meetings where we respect one another's opinion, that we smile and value one another's opinions, and you haven't seen any bickering because we get along. I think what you need to do is you need to first start off and look at what you can agree on and try to work on those things instead of what you don't agree on. And then you need to stop thinking and talking and arguing about why you can't do it. You need a more positive approach on how you can do it to move the bar forward.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to the closing comments, and by coin toss, Mr. McGlennon, you'll go first.
Thank you. Well, again, thank you very much for the opportunity to have this forum, and thanks to all of you for coming out tonight. I know that those of you who may be residents of the Roberts District had quite a long trek up here to this library, but that's good because it's important for us to know about our entire county, and appreciate the fact that you chose to come up here this evening. And we'll come back again and visit your neighbors in this part of the county. I think this election provides a real opportunity for us. Citizens in the county have expressed their frustration very clearly over the last several years. And what they've said is very simply, the Board of Supervisors does not appear to be listening to what we are saying. And it's time for us to do something about 2 decades of growth that have exceeded the national average by 4 times. How many times do we have to hear citizens say that? I think that this election provides us the opportunity to change our direction. Nobody's suggesting we're not going to grow. We couldn't stop growing if we wanted to stop it entirely. There's so much that's already been approved. But we have to ask tougher questions. We're in the situation where this county has the opportunity and the obligation to say, when a proposal comes forward, what does it do for us? How does this enrich our community? How does it make it better? Or is it more of just the same old stuff? I think too often what people say is the board approves the same old stuff. Roughly 93% of the cases that have come before the board in the last decade have been approved. I've been more discriminating than that and approved only about 30%. Mr. Fraley approved 84% of the proposals that came before him for residential development during his time on the Planning Commission. I think the contrast couldn't be starker. It's not a question of no growth, it's a question of the right growth and managing the growth that does come in a way that the community can accommodate. Thank you very much.
You know, that 84% number is thrown around by all the Dems around town. They're all, I guess, doesn't matter who they talk about, they like to throw that 84% number around. Look, I fought development in Mr. McClennan's backyard, and he didn't stand up for me. I fought against Kaufman and Knowles and their big attorneys, and he left me strung out. He didn't step up for me. So, you know, that's something you all should know. I fought against Autumn West. I fought hard against Autumn West recently, against Autumn West. The developers came after me on that. The board left me strung out. There's no help there. If you're concerned about growth, you can't just whine about it. You actually have to do something about it and bring some ideas. Ideas like looking at the population caps, looking at harmonizing of the zoning. It doesn't do any good to wring your hands and complain about it. And here's the other thing. In the last 4 years, there's been hardly any growth. There's been less than 100 houses approved in James City County by this board. Less than 100 in the last 4 years. And I am a planning commissioner, and I've pushed hard as a planning commissioner for quality of life. I have an impressive record on the things that I've implemented and not just talked about. Again, pre-environment and inventories, tree preservation, limits on clear cutting. I just didn't whine when Settlers Market that John voted for got clear cut. I did something about it. I pushed through a policy that was adopted by the county. Tree preservations as well, phasing of development. These are all policies that I put forth, and I'm proud of my record on development.
Thank you both. I want to thank all of you who came tonight, and I think that we really want to thank the two candidates for being willing to share their ideas, their experiences, and their perspectives, and doing it in such an articulate manner. I think we also would like to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this debate, and to And I want to remind all of you to go to the polls on November 8th. Good job. And make sure you go to the right polling place. So thank you for being here.